My dear friends, welcome to another episode of the Trevor Chapman Show. In this episode, Doran and I have an incredibly interesting conversation. We also touch on religion, theology, and religious belief systems. In fact, there's quite a lot of talking about Christianity. Sit back, relax, grab your pen and paper, and enjoy this episode of the Trevor Chapman Show.
Welcome, my friends, to the Trevor Chapman Show. This is Trevor, and this is our place, yours and mine, where we talk and learn from the best minds on this beautiful earth about entrepreneurship, achievement. We are purveyors of the good life, curating environments that promote and even demand kairos moments of success, happiness, and euphoric achievement. I mean, we work relentlessly to attain levels of the highest performance in business and life. Here is to our collective happiness and to celebrating our human experience. My friends, it's time to run.
Welcome, my friends, to the Trevor Chapman Show. This is Trevor, and we are excited today to chat with Doran Aldana. Doran, thank you, man, for joining us.
Trev, thanks for having me, man. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely, brother. Hey, so to start off, give us the 60,000-foot overview of who Doran is, what you're known for now, but give us a little bit more, maybe zoom in a little bit closer on the last 10 or 20 years, your path, who you were, and what's led you to be who you're known publicly as today.
Sure. 60,000 feet, dude, that's like way up high there. So let me just try and not get my balls to hurt, because when I'm up high in high places and I look down, it gets a little queasy. So I'm going to give you the high perspective. I'm a father. I'm a husband, 15 years, father of 4. And I just love being a dad, love being a husband. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. So I've got a couple businesses, love growing businesses and growing teams and having things set up so that I can add value in my absence. I started out being kind of certified unemployable when I was about 16. I was lugging boards, banging nails at the end of a shovel on construction job sites. I was going to be a PE teacher, but halfway through university, I realized I'm not really mentally fit to work for anybody. So that kind of botched that plan. And then I just started to get into sales roles. I was in College Pro Painters and learned, kind of cut my teeth into entrepreneurship with a mentor built in, a general manager teaching me selling and marketing and hiring and firing. So I got my start in the trenches on the front lines of capitalism with College Pro Painters. And then we started to, when I say we, it was really a shift in my own spirit. So it's probably more singular, feeling like I needed to move on to bigger things. So I started to explore lots of other opportunities, all in sales, all in a variety of different marketing opportunities. And then I discovered my passion in coaching. I was driving around town selling education savings plans to anyone who, wanted to help put money away for their children's education. And as I was bombing around town, I started to listen to Anthony Robbins. And for those of you who have gotten just a taste of Anthony Robbins, he is a spark plug that will ignite your spirit if you're open to receiving it. So I really got ignited through his message and started to put it to practice and learn a lot about mindset and attitude and philosophy and psychology of success, and applied it in my life. Started to see massive impact in my sales results. And of course, because I'm a bit of an evangelist at heart, I wanted to share it with anyone with a pulse who could fog a mirror, who was receptive to hearing it. And that included friends and family who weren't down with being coached. So I discovered that in a hurry, that not everyone wants to receive what you've got. But I decided, I'm so passionate about this, I want to start my own company. So I started my own coaching company, Power of Choice Coaching, back in 2003. And then I just kind of morphed into helping people with their marketing. And I didn't really seek it out. It sought me out, this niche called helping mortgage professionals grow their business. And did that for several years, got lots of killer, wicked results from my clients and helping them grow their business, because I started to learn that, if I don't learn this marketing thing, I'm going to have skinny kids. So I started to study marketing and started to serve it up and teach it to my peeps. And they got wicked results as well. And then next thing you know, I started to discover this thing called Google and local reviews, and the importance of reviews becoming more and more important for the local search results. And so I started to look into how can we unlock the code of dominating on Google and Yelp and these various search result review sites. And so I couldn't find anything that really worked. So we ended up launching our own company with the testimonial engine to automate the process of getting reviews and getting them on key strategic review sites like Google and Yelp. So we've been doing that since 2014. So now I've got 2 babies to grow and to nurture between the 2 businesses and the 4 kids and the 2 birds and the dog and the wife. It's a full life.
Dude, I'll tell you that like Yelp was the bane of my existence back when I was in brick and mortar. You serve thousands of customers phenomenally well. And then you have the one customer that, Michael Jackson couldn't make them smile. And they jump on Yelp and there's just nothing that you can do. And Yelp is not on your side. It's just like this nightmare. Like, I'm sure that you're familiar far more than I am with, the people that call Yelp like the online mafia, and they just hold you hostage and destroy you. And it's killer, man.
Mm-hmm. And that's precisely one of the main reasons why a lot of our clients use our system, the testimonial engine, because it acts as a firewall to mitigate, if not eliminate, those negative Nellies from going on the web, spewing their negativity and tarnishing your reputation online forever. Because once they get it onto your record, it's virtually impossible to remove it. And Yelp is one of the worst for that. So that's one of the many reasons why clients come to us now, to be able to put a firewall up and really quarantine any negativity so it doesn't spew onto the web, not just on Yelp, but also Google and a variety of other review sites, because that is one of the most difficult things to overcome. Once you get a few negative Nellies, you need a whole whack of positive polys to outweigh the negative sentiment. And so that's a key piece of what we do for our clients.
And so are you doing that mainly for brick and mortar, or is that something like for my podcast or for my own like mastermind clients and stuff like that? Like I could work with you to pull reviews. Let me tell you what I found.
Sure.
And this blows my mind, dude, because we see the world through our own lens. And so I have a particular lens that I view the world from, and I see people that were instrumental in my life. And they may have been in my life for a moment, but I revere them because they fundamentally changed that. And so in return, I have this expectation that that's kind of how life is. And so it blows my mind when I've taken school teachers, in the middle of nowhere from a $24,000 a year salary to making $50,000 a day. And all of a sudden they forget about the fact that they had no clue what e-commerce was before I came into their life, had never ran a Facebook ad or banner ads or anything. And now they're so big, way too cool for school, way too cool for me too. And that does 2 things. It hurts me, like it actually does. And I try to be impervious. I try to not let anyone's opinion mess with me. But look, we're tribal. We are tribal. And the fact is that while it shouldn't, the opinion of others, especially those that we feel that we've invested into, that does come, man. That there is an emotion that occurs with that. So it hurts me, 1. And number 2, it's uncanny to me. I can't understand how great. So you've gone on and you've done other things, but I was the threshold. I walked you through the threshold. So how could someone like me use your service?
Yeah, well, first, it's easy to collapse the event or non-event of not getting a review with the meaning that they don't care, or, they're too cool for school, or, they really couldn't give a rat's ass about the contribution you've made. Because frankly, usually it's just that they're busy and they might really appreciate you. They might love you. They might love your service or the difference you've made in their life, but then life gets in the way and they get busy. And unless you have a system to, number 1, ask for the review at ideally the MMS, as I call it, the moment of maximum satisfaction. So after you complete a course, or after you close a transaction, or after they get the most potent dose of your awesomeness, whatever that threshold may be for you in your business, you want to ask them at that moment, because that's when they're at the peak of emotional satisfaction. And then you need to have a system for following up, because let's be real, people are busy. And if you are a one and done ask, chances are it's going to get lost in the vortex of their email inbox or however you are making the ask. And then they'll just forget about you. So you got to continually follow up. It's the old saying, the fortune is in the follow up, and persistence beats resistance. So you really need a system, as opposed to just hoping, wishing, and praying they're going to send you the positive reviews or testimonials. You need to ask proactively, and then you need to keep asking in an elegant way until they basically, eventually get off their duff and do it for you. So that's a key piece. We need to have the system.
Dude, so I've got a question, and I'm curious about this. I'm curious about your theological beliefs in this sense. What makes somebody certifiably non-employable, as you spoke about? Is it 100,000 years of coming from the loins of people who refused to be a serf in the kingdom? And so it's the warrior, it's the explorer, it's the Renaissance artist, it's the intellect, it's the conquistador, it's all of that running through your veins? Or like, what is it? And I'm curious in terms of actual belief systems, because I'll have this conversation and some people will say no, because I don't believe that creationism and evolution are mutually exclusive. I don't. And so I'm curious your thoughts on that in regards to what makes someone non-employable.
Well, I can't speak for other people. That's a really interesting question. I like how you take this conversation in all different little crooks and crannies and rabbit holes. And this is an interesting question to explore. And frankly, I can't speak for anyone else, but for myself, I was 6 years old. I loved Michael Jackson. I had one of those cool zipper Michael Jackson jackets, the ones that were zipper clad, black and red. I think I had both different versions. So as you can imagine, I was crazy about Michael J. And I was doing the moonwalk and all that kind of stuff. Then my mom, it didn't take her long to figure out I love that stuff. So my birthday came around and she wanted to, just wow my socks off on my birthday. And I guess she just found out last minute that Michael Jackson was in town. So she gets me in the car. She says she had an exciting surprise for me. And I was on pins and needles wondering what it was. And then we arrive at the Coliseum and I find out that Michael Jackson is showing up live in concert. And I was just over the moon jacked, as you can imagine. And so the only glitch was she was a single mom, had an autistic older brother. She was doing the best she could with what she knew. She didn't have a whole lot of money. She was working odd jobs, making peanuts. And she had no idea how much it cost to get tickets to Michael Jackson. And so she goes out of the car. She says, wait, I got to look into getting tickets. And I'm just thinking, perfect. She's going to go and make it happen. And then after a few moments, she comes back and she had a total despondent, dejected, depressed look on her face. And she told me, through holding back tears, that she couldn't get tickets because they were sold out and the scalpers were selling tickets way too expensive and she couldn't afford it. And I was just devastated by the news. My heart just sunk through the floor. And in that moment, she handed me a T-shirt as a consolation prize with Michael Jackson on it. But in that moment, I was just devastated. I want to see him live. And I was just so disappointed. And in that moment, there was something inside of me that just decided, you know what? I've heard this. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it from my mom and my dad through pretty much every conscious year of my existence on earth at that point. And I was just done. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just decided I'm going to find a way to never have to tell my kids that I can't afford it or that we can't afford it. So I think that was really the valley in my life that ignited a lava flow under my ass to find a way to win. And I've always had ambition. I've always had lofty dreams. I've always had a lot of drive and discipline. I shouldn't say always. I've had seasons where I didn't, but there's been a golden thread throughout the years of me just having this insatiable desire to win. And I think it maybe was God-given, an ambition, but also there's that moment in my life, that turning point where I just decided whatever it frickin' takes, I'm going to do it.
So those seasons that you weren't driven, when ambition and desire just wasn't strong enough, what caused that? What did that feel like?
I was a teenager. I wanted to belong. I wanted to be one of the cool cats in the crew. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to feel like I was a somebody. And I didn't have my own core of identity. I was a follower, not a leader. And so I was following the wrong crew. I was hanging around with the wrong influences. And I was allowing those influences to lead me in the wrong direction. And so I started getting into smoking pot and drinking and skipping school and just hanging with, negative influences. And you've probably heard the saying, if you lay down with dogs, you're going to wake up with fleas. So that was me, age, 15, 16, grade 10, I think it was. And I got into a bunch of trouble, and so much so that I actually lost the privilege of my love, which was sports. So I was a jock, an athlete. I love basketball. I love track and field. I love ice hockey. And so they basically said, listen, it's done. You've lost the privilege. And I was devastated. And I came back and said, give me one more chance. And I just, again, one of those defining moments, I just vowed I'm not going to let myself slip into that folly again. And I pulled away from those negative influences and doubled down on my discipline and my focus and my schoolwork, and staying away from, the wrong people. And next year I got Aggregate of the Year award and Athlete of the Year award. And that was kind of a turning point. I got myself back on track, and I got that fire back, and I've had it ever since.
Dude, I love that, man. So I grew up similar. I oldest of 5 kids, Guam and Alaska, is where I grew up. And I played every sport until it came time to pay for the jersey. Then I always had a great reason why I couldn't play that year. And so I don't know what caused mine, but one thing I'm struggling with right now is I have 5 kids. My oldest is 11.
Wow.
And it is instilling in them a work ethic that was forged in me from having nothing. And I'm trying, how are you teaching your kids? Because they're growing up entirely different than you did. But because of that, there's 2 sides. No matter how thin you slice it, there's 2 sides to, every coin or whatever. And so they're growing up being able to attend Michael Jackson concerts, but that comes with the consequence of being privileged and not having to work so hard so you don't appreciate everything, etc. Like, how are you dealing with this?
That's a difficult one, man. And kudos to you. I thought I was a sucker for punishment signing up for 4. But you one up me, man. You one up me, which is not easy to find nowadays. Normally I'm the high achiever at 4, but after 4 kids, I realized they're a heck of a lot easier to make than to raise. So I shut down the plant after 4. But it is a challenge to walk that fine line between wanting to give them the best life possible and not spoiling them and giving them too much privilege without them having the muscle of their own work ethic, earning it. And so it's a difficult one. My wife and I are continually in that conversation, trying to navigate that one. We have, kind of a game plan in our household, if you want to call it that, where if they talk back, that's a stick. We have a container on the windowsill with 3 sticks for each kids, and they get an allowance of $5 per week. But if they lose their 3 sticks, they don't get their allowance. So if they talk back or they have a bad attitude when we ask them to do the dishes, that's a stick. Or if they're, beating up their sibling and they're not apologizing. And by apology, we have a different rule. Most people, apology is, I'm sorry. In our household, an apology is to, first of all, acknowledge I was wrong. Second of all, to state what specifically I did that was wrong. Thirdly, it's to commit to a new way of being. So in the future, I'm going to be gentle. In the future, I'm going to be patient. In the future, I'm going to be kind. And then the last piece is asking for forgiveness. So if they won't do that, we withhold privileges, or they get a stick removed. So we're trying to find ways to navigate through this crazy, chaotic existence with all of our pride and selfishness and ego at play. And it doesn't take long for all that stuff to crop up. And I'm new at being a parent. They're new at being kids. So we're all trying to figure this stuff out as we go. But we try and give them a sense of responsibility and not let them off the hook. Because the worst thing we can do is let them beat on each other and not clean that up, or have a bad attitude, be disrespectful to mom and dad, and let them just do it without any consequence, or not pull their weight in the kitchen and do dishes and just have them, get by and have no consequence. If we give them an inch, they take a mile. You've heard the saying. So I think it's really, really key. We don't cut them any slack. Not being militant, but we're trying to raise healthy adults, healthy, mature, successful adults. We're not trying to raise kids. And that's the big piece we try to stay mindful of.
That's tough, man. I am trying to figure that out. I've got my 7-year-old daughter. She's just like her mom. She's a hard worker, and everything's binary to her. If it has to be done, you do it. And then my oldest, my son, and the daughter right beneath that one, they're a little bit more like me in the sense that everything's kind of flexible. Like, does this really need to be done right now? And luckily, my childhood and the circumstances of it have more or less eradicated my tendency to see the world fluidly like that, and which I'm so grateful for, and I wouldn't change it. But I don't know how to change it for them. We had a moment right before snowfall here. I'm in Utah right now. And we cut down one of the trees in the backyard. And I was somewhere. My wife said, Jace, he's our oldest, go stack all that wood. And he said, why don't you go hire someone to do it? And she about flipped. Well, she probably did flip. Yeah. And, neither of us grew up in like privilege. And I had no spare time. Like, if I had a half-hour segment during the day when I wasn't doing something I was told, I valued that half hour like it was rubies and diamond and gold, that I could be doing what I wanted to do. And I think one of our issues is that they just have so much time to do whatever they want that they don't value any of it. And when that pattern is broken, it's like this thing like, why would you ever ask me to do that? And so it's like my thing right now is trying to figure out how to give them what I did not have, not in excess, but enough so that, when they go school clothes shopping, it's not their buddy's clothes from the previous year that was donated to the thrift store. But teach them hard work, man. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm still in the process of figuring that out.
Yeah. Well, there's always privileges to be revoked as a backup for us. That's always what I'm looking for. If I notice that they're back talking, or they have a bad attitude, or they're being disrespectful, I ask myself, what privileges do they just feel entitled to that I need to revoke to remind them that it's a privilege, not a given? And I learned that from a great book worth reading, actually, a few times. It's a quickie. You could read it in 1 week. It's called A New Kid by Friday.
A New Kid by Friday.
Okay. A New Kid by Friday. Phenomenal book. And it's all about letting consequences do the heavy lifting. Because as parents, we tend to get emotionally involved, and we blow our lids, and we get perturbed and disturbed, and we get our knickers in a knot, and we get all, frustrated and irate, and we start yelling. We think that the emotional charge is the way to do it. When in actuality, if we bring that type of leadership to the business world, that's going to work against you big time. You're not going to keep top talent, let alone attract top talent, if you have that kind of leadership. Well, I think the home is the same thing. If you want to lead healthy, responsible adults who have it inside of them as opposed to rammed down their throat, I think it takes a certain similar type of leadership where we're inspiring them to greatness, not by berating them with forcefulness, but by just natural consequences. And that book gives some awesome principles for that. I'm not even remotely close to mastering it. I'm still blundering along, trying to figure it out. But what the big aha I got from the book is let the consequences, the natural consequences, do all the heavy lifting. So you don't have to yell. You don't have to get irate. You don't have to get perturbed or disturbed or lose your peace. You can just allow the consequences to do all the heavy lifting. And it's really, really amazing. Once I made that shift, it's like, you know what? There's never ever a time where where it's appropriate or helpful for me to get irate. I just let the consequences do all the heavy lifting. It's a game changer.
Dude, I just ordered it on Amazon while you were talking. So I'm, act now, man. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Strike while the iron is hot. You're a man of action. Well, someone recommended it to me when I was in the time of need in my parenting, and I pulled the trigger right away as well. And now the chain of awesomeness is continuing. So I'm glad you're now getting the message that makes a difference.
That's right, man. So here's a question I have then. When I have close friends go through like some sort of life celebration, getting married, whatever, selling a company, whatever it may be, there are two books that I give to them. Not because they're the two best books I've ever read in my life, because there's better books, but these two books fundamentally helped shape me. And it's interesting because I think that they were very surface level, but they caused deep inside of me, certain changes to occur that then changed everything outwardly. So the first one is Richest Man in Babylon, George S. Clason. It's like an old classic. If anyone hasn't read it, they should. It's not about, traditional orthodoxy Babylon. That's not what it is, but it talks about material. It talks about wealth in practical terms. And that got me through post 2008 disaster when I lost everything, including my self-confidence. And then the second one is A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy. In college, I studied philosophy. It was the only course material where I felt like something magnificent just occurred when I left the room. And that's a book that I read. I used to read it 2, 3, 4 times a year. Maybe I read it once a year now, but it's fundamental in how I live my life. And so I give these books as like these tokens of these were significant to me. It's kind of like, a rite of passage. If your son wanders off into the jungle, you're going to say, this bow helped me survive. You take this bow now. That's kind of how I feel when I give family or friends these books. What books for you have been, or maybe audiobooks, maybe a movie, whatever it is, what type of communication, written, verbal, whatever, has impacted you so significantly that you would give it out in a rite of passage type of setting?
That is a really good question. By the way, I've taken mental note of the one book you recommended that I have not read yet, A Guide to the Good Life. I'm going to get that. I didn't want to tinker on my computer and cause background noise, so I'm not doing it right now. But
no problem.
I'm definitely going to pull the trigger on that. So I'm looking forward to reading that. It's difficult for me to answer your question because there's so many different amazing books that have influenced my life. I am a proud and emphatic proponent of Jesus. And so I'm a Jesus follower, Jesus lover. So I had an encounter with God when I was 18, living in a frat house. I'd never been raised in the church or never was raised with the Bible around. I'd open it up when I was at my grandparents' house and it looked like a stuffy old book that no one in the right mind would ever read. I tried to read it occasionally for about 2 nanoseconds, would shut it and think, who the hell in their right mind would read that? That was my encounter with Bible, church, Jesus, until I was 18 and had a personal encounter with him that absolutely revolutionized my life. And ever since then, the Bible and prayer and just having time to connect with my maker through Jesus has been a very personal and profound and important part of my life. So reading the Bible for me is really, really key. So, rites of passage, that's certainly for me an awakening for me that I love to share with others, a spiritual awakening that I love to share with others and share my God story with others. And obviously, the historicity of Jesus and him being a real human being on this earth and walking and talking and having disciples that he groomed and miracles that he did and eyewitnesses that proclaimed all that he did. And then, of course, his death. So a lot of the historicity of his life, death, and resurrection is, for me, a life passage, an awakening, a spiritual awakening that transformed my life that I would share with anyone who has not yet encountered the historical Jesus the way I did. The other books that have been life-changing for me, I love Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. That's an amazing book about him sharing what it was like to be in a concentration camp during World War II and the profound insight he gained from that, in the sense of him being able to choose the meaning he placed to that excruciatingly difficult time in his life, being literally on the brink of being exterminated, and seeing how people interacted with how they saw the situation that they were in. And so that book was amazing because it got me to realize no matter how difficult the season I'm in is, I can choose the meaning. I can choose the experience by choosing the meaning. There are so many other amazing books. I mean, an amazing business book is Chet Holmes' book, The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Anything from Jim Rohn is phenomenal. I love Jim Rohn. He's fed so much wisdom into my soul. Just the principle of, if you work on your job, you'll make a living. If you work on yourself, you'll make a fortune. The whole principle of the book that you don't read can't help you. The whole principle of you will face one of two pains in life, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline weighs an ounce, regret weighs a ton. There's so many different pearls of wisdom. Don't ask that life were easier, wish that you were better. Don't ask for less challenges, ask for more skill, more wisdom. So anything from Jim Rohn is amazing. I could go on, but I think it's really about being a pursuer of wisdom. I think that's the most important piece, being a pursuer of wisdom. Any of Andy Andrews' books are phenomenal too. Speaking of being a pursuer of wisdom, Andy Andrews, phenomenal author, amazing life-changing principles in story.
What are his books, Andy Andrews?
He's got a few of them. And I've gone through most of them in audio format. He's got an awesome podcast too, by the way, called In the Loop by Andy Andrews. His most famous one is called The Traveler's Gift. The Traveler's Gift. Mm-hmm. So I'd start with that one, The Traveler's Gift. And then he's got a whole lot more. I think he's got about 5 or 6 additional books, but The Traveler's Gift is one of the best.
So how do you strengthen through routine? How do you strengthen your belief in Christianity? I'm also Christian, just to throw that out there. But I'm curious about the routine surrounding that. Because I bring that up because I don't want you to feel like as I talk about this objectively, I don't want you to feel like I'm attacking or anything like that, because I'm not. I'm just very interested in what you do that helps you fight the barrage of arrows that seems to assault every lifestyle.
It's a great question. I'm a big proponent of routine. I think rarely will you have the quality of your results exceed the quality of your daily routine. So your choice, your word choice of routine, I think is really key. What is your routine to build up your faith, your certainty, your confidence in what you believe? And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by choice. It happens by design. So I'm a huge proponent of having time in the morning. I like to kick things off with exercise, learn while I burn, I call it, learning and burning. So I'll listen to something inspirational, motivational, educational. And while I'm doing that, I exercise, hit two birds, one stone. And then I'll come home, have a healthy breakfast for the kids. And then I'll have what I call quiet time or devotional time. So I'll have time on my knees in prayer for 5 to 10 minutes. I'll have time just connecting with my maker, just time to really give thanks and gratitude. I think gratitude is one of the highest vibrations you can ever be in a place of thanksgiving, and not just wanting what you have, but not just having what you want, but wanting what you have, having this feeling of spilling over with Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful way to start any day. And then I like to also get into scripture. I like to, just cozy up on the couch and I'll read a chapter, and just having the practice of getting into what I believe to be the inspired word of God, where I can have God kind of speak into my heart, speak into my spirit, reveal himself to me in a deeper way. And then I also like to do memorization. I'm a little geeked out that way. So I'll have some index cards in a little coupon filing system, and I bust out my index cards, and I just have a little, one verse, maybe there's multiple verses all on one index card with the address on one side, the verses on the other. And I'll just go through maybe one or two of those and just meditating on it and reciting it and just marinating my mind in it. And that's essentially what I do. And I'll do that for 15 minutes to half an hour, sometimes as much as 45 minutes. So it's a little bit elastic depending on the day, but that's my daily routine. And I feel that just doing that, even if it's just 15 minutes, gives me a feeling of being anchored in what matters, and has me see my life in proper perspective, and has me anchored in my spiritual mission, my eternal purpose that was God ordained, versus my ego purpose to make more money, to get ahead, to increase status, to, all these things as an entrepreneur. It's really easy to get caught up into stacking the cash, growing the business, and lose sight of what really matters. So that practice daily helps me to stay anchored in my high purpose that I believe God has given me from the day I was born, knit in my mother's womb. It's important to stay anchored to that. Otherwise, the turbulence of life can suck me into the vortex. Next thing you know, I'm feeling stressed, frustrated, angry, overwhelmed. And from that place, I can't live the purpose. I can't make the impact. I can't make the contribution. I can't create the legacy that I believe God called me to be. So being anchored in an eternal purpose beyond my flesh, beyond my human perspective, allows me to be bold, be powerful, be full of peace and poise, no matter what the circumstance. And I feel that's the way life needs to be lived.
Very good. So how do you feel about other cultural spiritual leaders, guys like Buddha, figures like Muhammad? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth that a lot of these spiritual leaders share. Buddha talks about peace. He talks about detachment. He talks about letting go of ego. There's a lot of truth in that. So I'm a big proponent of filtering through the gravel to find the gold nuggets. I really have a disdain for people who feel like they have it all figured out and will throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, because it's not my paradigm or my religion or it's not in my book, that I'm going to throw it all out. I like to sift for the pearls amongst the sand. And that does admittedly require discernment. and wisdom. And perhaps I don't have it all figured out in that respect, but I like to continually be open to looking for insight that can be of benefit to me and benefit to others. So I'm perhaps a little more open-minded than the average Christian. I think Christians have a bad rap for being bigoted and narrow-minded and judgmental. I think Jesus was one of the kind of dudes that when he walked the earth, you either loved him or you hated him. But he was not the kind of person that you would call judgmental. He was not the kind of person that you'd call narrow-minded. He was wisdom. He was love. He was truth. He was generosity. He was benevolence. He was kindness. He was mercy. He was grace. But I don't think anyone would have said he was judgmental. So I try and just follow in the steps of Jesus. And I like to just try and bring the best out of everything so I can give the best to everything and get the best from everything. So that's the way I see it.
So I had two really good buddies growing up, and I went to high school in Alaska. And one of my buddies, years after college, I don't remember, maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe earlier. My memory fails me here, but the three of us were together again, and we had spent middle school and high school together. I mean, just as tight as you can be. And we asked him, because I wanted to understand his thought process more. In high school, you kind of steer clear of any conversations that are going to make you not like each other for whatever reason. I don't know if it's insecurities or what it is, but this was genuine curiosity. And I asked him, a villager born in the backwoods of Africa that has no clue about this figure Jesus that walked, what is going to happen to them? And he told me that they're going to go to hell. And for me, if there is a God that is as benevolent as everyone says, the one that I believe in, that would never be the case. Now, there may be things that need to happen. There may be things that, etc. But what are your, because you talk a little bit about like the mainstream Christian and the kind of the nose-uppedness that there is. Like, how do you, what are your thoughts on all this? Let me preface that by saying this. We have a few things at night that we say as a family. The last phrase that the kids, this memorized thing, this concoction of just stuff that me and my wife have put together. The last phrase is love all, serve all, create no sorrow. And that's what I believe. Live and let live. Love everyone, serve everyone, create no sorrow, because you're going to create and you must create. You don't create and you're doing yourself a disservice, everyone a disservice. So create anything and everything that you can, but don't create sorrow. What do you think?
I like that. Yeah, that's beautiful. It really speaks to your mission to be a light in the darkness and to create a legacy of love. So I love your heart, and I love that you're teaching your kids that. And I'm not one to ever say I've got it all figured out. You probably had noticed that by now. So that's a difficult question that you asked your friend. And I'm not so quick to have a confident answer. I am like you. I believe in a benevolent, all-knowing, all-powerful, loving God full of grace and mercy. That is certainly Jesus and what he embodied walking this earth: benevolence, grace, kindness, mercy, and love. So I believe that people will be judged based on the light that was given to them. If they're given much light, there'll be a higher responsibility on how they stewarded that light of truth. If they never heard about Jesus, I believe that God in his mercy will reveal to that person in his own way. He is certainly able. He created the heavens and the earth. He can certainly reveal himself as he deems fit to be able to give anyone and everyone an opportunity to either receive him and receive grace and to receive salvation and to receive eternal life, or to reject. How that happens, I'm not altogether certain after someone takes their last breath. Only God knows. But I am a big believer of stewardship and responsibility. And if we've been given the light of Jesus, the light of the free gift of God in Jesus, then that's a responsibility that we all have. What are we going to do with that light? Are we going to reject that light? Are we going to reject that love message, or are we going to embrace it? And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's really where the rubber meets the road. What are we going to do with the message of this Jesus, this embodiment of love? Are we going to embrace him as the Son of God who died for us as a free gift, or are we going to reject it and say, I think I could do a better job of being God? I think, if a benevolent God was truly benevolent, I'd do it this way. See, I think really that's the rub. Is we're prone as human beings to put ourselves on the throne and say, I could do a better job of being God. I don't think that's the right way of being God. This is the right way of being God. And we end up now putting ourselves on the throne saying, I've got a better way of being God. And that's pride. And pride is what precedes a fall. So I like to just stay in a humble place and say, I don't have all the answers, but I love this Jesus guy and I want to follow him and I want to embrace him because he first loved me. I respond in kind and love him back because I don't deserve the lavish, extravagant grace and love and eternal paradise that he's granting me, but I receive it and I say thank you. And that's all I can do. I don't have all the answers.
Good stuff, man. So here's something that I think is slightly controversial. And I say it not intending to be controversial, but here it is. We've got quantum physics, which is, it's like completely not intuitive. There's a particle independent of us, and we look at it and our observation of it changes its very nature. It goes from acting like a piece of matter into a wave. Quantum physics says that there are infinite realities in this fleeting moment right now, like all this stuff. And so knowing that this is all there, this is kind of how my philosophy of life. I do not believe that I should forego creating a life that is, to me, heaven right now, so that one day in the future, I can have what I seek. In other words, what I believe often happens is people do what they would rather not do now because of some reward in the future. And I'm not saying run around and be a hedonist and pleasure seek. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is that I do not think that we should sacrifice, dude, like here's the deal. Think about how incredible this is. You see the sunrise. You wake up early before most of the planet. You look out, oranges, reds, purples, deep blues, the dark black on the other side of the sky. And as that hits your optic nerve, the entirety of infinity being magnified into something so infinitely small, your optic nerve, and then being translated into the optical portion of your brain, which then in turn interprets nothing but protons and photons. Like it's nothing but positive and negative charges. Those colors aren't really there. Like but you have interpreted out of this data set of protons and photons, because you observed it. It's not there independent of you. It's protons and photons independent of you. But because you observed it, you have now created out of what was there a sunrise that invokes feelings within you that are hard to explain. We don't even know exactly what is this? Okay, dopamine, serotonin, this is all squirting. But what is this? Mm-hmm. That the ability to hear symphonic music that moves people to tears and to action, nothing but vibrations. Horsehair against metal. and it moves us to the rally charge, or it moves us to drop to our knees and ask someone to marry us. All of these things we are willing into existence because of the miracle. Like, this is, we so often take everyday miracles and we turn them into just, it is what, it is what it is. We grew up listening to music. A sunset happens every night, occurs every morning. And so whatever, like, they're there every day. That I think to step back and actually recognize the miracle of each. This is why I'm a practicing Stoic. I hate even saying that. I try to be, because I recognize the fleeting nature of this moment now, and in so doing, I appreciate and I'm full of gratitude. So in Christendom, you would say counting your blessings, but it goes a little bit deeper in Stoicism. It goes down to negative visualization, which is going so deep into thought that it's as if you lost it, recognizing that at any moment, the house you're in, the computer you're on, the kids that you have, the wife that you're with, all of this could in one dramatic moment all be taken away. And if you experience that in your mind to the point of emotions, when you come out of that moment of reckoning, you appreciate it all more than just saying, oh, hey, thanks for this blessing. Thanks for that blessing. This is cool. Fix that, blah, blah, blah. You are in gratitude in its most basic format. And my belief, me as my kids, is I will say to them, yes, lift those weights now so that you can be stronger later, but do not spend your life only lifting the weights, staying in eternal pain, so that one day you can magnificently be in this moment of perfection. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I believe that we are to experience joy and happiness and the full spectrum right now, just not in a heaven that comes long after this life. And I find that tends to be controversial because a lot of people I speak with do not think that.
Dude, you are deep, brother. I wish you were in my neighborhood. We'd hang out more often. I love the way you think. What you're really speaking to, Trevor, I think, is happily achieve versus achieve to be happy. It's having the perspective that it's the journey, it's the process, it's the milking the beautiful nectar of the present moment for all it's worth, by having an attitude of gratitude, by reminding ourselves that friends, family, neighbors, etc., can come into the picture at any given point in time. And, we never know when those precious people in our lives will go. We never know when those precious people in our lives can go. I have a friend that literally, he lost his daughter. His daughter was 14. She had the flu, just a flu. And we all have had flus. We've all had them and we've all got through them. With this flu, she went down for a nap. She never woke up. She stopped breathing.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, his 14-year-old precious Gabriella was no longer there with them. And so he had to deal with and reckon with this massive heartbreak that he cannot reverse. This is now his life. He had 3 kids, now he has 2. And so his entire family has just been absolutely heartbroken by this loss, not because they don't believe in heaven. They do. They believe that she's in paradise with Jesus, but they're still heartbroken because they adore her. They love her. They miss her. They want to touch her. They want to savor her presence. And ever since that happened a month ago, I've squeezed my kids just a little tighter. Ever since that happened, it's just reminded me that I can't take anything for granted. And that these precious little souls that we're granted the privilege and the responsibility to steward, called our kids, are such a gift. And just to be there and be present to, snuggle them and kiss them and hug them and play with them and watch that sparkle in their eye and just savor them. So I think part of that process is just cultivating the habit of gratitude and really enjoying the process. And no matter what challenges we face, to know that someone's facing even darker challenges, and that no challenge is big enough to steal my peace. No challenge is big enough to steal my poise. No challenge is big enough to steal my power. That every challenge I face is there for me to call me forth to be present, and to know that it's there to serve me, to get stronger, to get better, to get sharper, to propel me upwards, not backwards. And then there's no fear. There's just love and peace and gratitude and thanksgiving. And that's the place to be right there.
Good stuff, Doran. Thank you, man. We need to come to a close. Where can people find you online, and how can they engage with you?
Yeah, you can reach me if you know of any mortgage professionals. You can reach me on my mortgagemarketingcoach.com website. We help mortgage professionals close more deals with less effort, regardless of market conditions. And then if you want to learn more about the testimonial engine, you can go to mytestimonialengine.com if you're looking for more reviews for your business so you can build your business at the speed of trust. You definitely want to check that out. Again, that's mytestimonialengine.com. And I put together a special resource for those of you watching, listening. It's a toolkit called the Ultimate Testimonial Toolkit, with all kinds of swipe and deploy proven templates for getting more reviews from your happy clients or customers or patients, and turning more of those reviews into profits by positioning yourself as the only logical choice, so you dominate in your local market as the trusted, preeminent advisor in your market. And so all that awesomeness is packed into this Ultimate Testimonial Toolkit. You can grab it at mytestimonialengine.com/Trevor. That's mytestimonialengine.com/TREVOR. So check it out, and it's absolutely free, no strings attached. You're welcome.
Doran, thank you, man. Let's jump back on in 4 or 5 months and catch up and see how things are going, if you're down with that.
Would love that, brother. Would love that. Dude, this has been one of the most interesting, meaningful, deep, and dendrite firing conversations I've ever had on a podcast. So you obviously bring that forth in your guests, and that is very much part of your consciousness, stimulating consciousness in others to talk about the things that matter. So I just salute you and respect you and appreciate you for what you're doing here. I think these are the kind of questions more people need to be asking and pursuing answers for. So nicely done, man. Keep up the great work.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much, man. And thank you, audience. We will see you tomorrow on iTunes.